Hello, and I am back in Canada from my very long holiday from the hot, the humid, and the beautiful, the Philippines. And to kickstart the second half of the year, I do have a rather beautiful and good news for international students, as this is a permanent decision of the IRCC to increase the working hours of international students in Canada. Hello everyone, this is Coach Rice and welcome back. This is Quest Canada. And the big news is international students are able to work for 24 hours a week starting September 2024. Now let's get back a little and give you a little bit of a context on what actually happened with international students' ability to work in Canada. Back in 2018, the regulation or the permanent regulation was that international students can work 20 hours a week, and then the COVID hit. The IRCC implemented a temporary regulation wherein international students can work full-time, but again, it was temporary, and this regulation is set to have to expire this month. Actually, it has already expired by the time of the publishing of this video. Now, the IRCC have yet changed the regulation to 24 hours a week for international students, and this is now permanent. This will come into effect on September 2024. Now, of course, this is not applicable on all settings because an international student can work full-time, non-stop, as long as you can, if it is an in-campus job, meaning within the vicinity or the territory of the campus of the school where you study at. And also, you can work full-time when you are on break, as long as you are a full-time student when the break, before the break happens, and you will be a full-time student the moment the school resumes. So that are exceptions on an international student to work full-time. Some of you may ask, why is there a restriction on the number of hours an international student can work in Canada? And the number of hours quota actually is not just in Canada. This is implemented in the UK, in Australia, and all other European countries. And the reason behind this is because the government believes that an international student should allocate enough time to study, because they come here, or an international student comes to Canada to study and not primarily to work. If an international student is given the freedom to work as much as he pleases, and then the international or the study permit becomes a way for a person to just work and not necessarily study. So the government does not want this to happen and avoids this to happen. As such, the cap or the quota on the working hours of an international student is in place. Now I have to say that this is rather a breath of fresh air, because from the beginning of 2024, there had been many changes on study permit and study permit applications that had been implemented by the IRCC that were not too positive for international student applicants. And I have covered in detail the information on that in this video, and I certainly ask you guys, or urge you guys, to watch that. Now, the main reason that various limitations and restrictions had been implemented on study permit application and approval is because international students apparently had led rapid population growth, most especially in Ontario, and this has essentially had an effect on the housing market or the housing situation in Canada, most definitely in Ontario as well. And as a result, the government had to implement the study permit allocation or cap on application and study permit approvals. Now, this is already a segue from the original topic of this video, which is the international students' ability to work within Canada. But there is a piece of information that is absolutely interesting for me, and I would like to share it with you. The top 10 schools across Canada that had the most application of study permit across Canada or with the IRCC are: number 10, Fleming College from Ontario, Sheridan College from Ontario, Algoma University, again from Ontario, Centennial, Lambton, Seneca, Niagara College, and Fanshawe College. The top three schools across Canada that had the most application of study permits are Conestoga College, which ranks number 1, and the University Canada West, which ranks number 2, and this is from British Columbia. The third school is Fanshawe College. Out of the 10 schools, 9 of them come from Ontario or are located in Ontario, and only one is from outside Ontario. That tells you a lot of information. If you will put it into context, it is quite obvious that most of the international students do study, live, and work in Ontario. And as a matter of fact, in the last 3 years, almost half of international students who come to Canada actually study and live and work in Ontario. As such, this creates so much competition to every single person. As a matter of fact, I'd like to share with you some experience that I've had. I've had so many consultations with different persons, with different nationalities, students of different situations. Some are single, some are family, some are couple, and many of them come from Ontario. Many of them have finished their schools already or their programs already in Ontario, and they could not land a PR pathway. And so predominantly the content or the topic and focus of the consultation I normally have with the students is really what are my chances or the opportunities I have in the Atlantic if I move from Ontario to the Atlantic. And this has always been the topic that I've had over the years with different students who come from Ontario. And I tell you guys, being in such a situation is not fun. It's a struggle. It's difficult, and that's why I always tell everyone, before deciding on a province, before deciding on a school, before deciding on a program, the very first question you have to ask yourself is there any PR pathway for me in this province? If the answer is yes, you go ahead and knock on the door of that school and apply for your admission. If the answer is no, then you have to really think deep and ask yourself, do you really want to make that investment? Now, if you are on a limbo and you cannot really decide, we are happy to help, guys. We can help you navigate the entire maze on which province really is the best for you, which school really is the best for you, which program really is the best for you. Should you take a post-secondary or post-diploma or a master's degree, connect with us. That's admin@questcanadaca.com. Now, having said this, it's not necessarily me saying that do not go to Ontario because Ontario is all this negative, etc., etc. No, not necessarily. Every single province has got their pros and their cons. This province, or New Brunswick, has got its pros and its cons. PEI, Newfoundland, British Columbia, Alberta, all of these provinces got its pros and cons. So the question is, which pros and cons are you willing to live with? And which pros and cons are you able to cope with? And upon answering that, then you make the decision.